G'day my fellow media collectors and welcome to the Comic Book Movie Collector's Guide. I'm your host Troy and this is your show about collecting all things superhero cinema. And today is a requested video and it is my top 5 top or flop Marvel and DC movies. So what do you say we get into it? So, this video is a request and it's from a good mate of mine here on YouTube, Roberto, over at Roberto Nero Superheroes. So you should go check him out and subscribe. He has a lot of great collection videos like myself, and I love seeing the different DVDs and Blu-rays he picks up from time to time of different titles that we never see here in Australia. So look, go check him out. I'll have the link below and check out some of his great videos. Now, he did a video just recently called Top Flop Film Superhero? Sorry, it's Italian for superhero, I think, which I will also have the link down below so you can go check out his video. But then he put the challenge out to me to do my 5 top and flop Marvel DC movies. So I said,
oh really? Well, challenge accepted.
So look, there is a proviso, as he mentioned in his videos, to the list, and these are only the big budget movie releases from both studios. So none of the low budget TV movies or straight to DVD releases, etc. These are just the movies that, these are the movies that you just love to watch the most or you just really hate the most. It's not that they're necessarily the best or the worst by any sort of popular opinion. These are the ones that sort of strike a chord with you, the individual, in either a good way or a bad way.
I'm still undecided.
So I'm following the same format that Rob did in his video, and I'm going to start with Marvel, and then I'm going to go to DC, and I'm going to start with my 5 tops, and then my 5 flops. So what do you say we get into it?
Number 5.
Okay, number 5 is Thor Ragnarok. Now this is the first Thor that we got that was humorous, and we really got to see Chris Hemsworth's funny side, shall we say, and with Taika Waititi, I hope I said that right, at the helm. It was a great refreshing revival of that character. I thought it was really good, and of course the chemistry between Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth and all that was really good, and I really enjoy it. Me and my youngest daughter Lucy, we loved watching that one, and we love the Led Zeppelin music in it as well, so that's why this one's at number 5.
Number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is Avengers Endgame. I mean, what have you got to say about that other than I could watch that end fight scene over and over and over again, and to tell you the truth, I have. The first part of it, I'm not saying the first part of it is bad, but honestly, it's just that end fight scene with all that shit goes down. How could you not love that? And of course, it was an end of an era. It was this nice little pin that put that 10 years worth of movies that you watched in the end. So that's why I love watching that one over and over again. So that's why that's my number 4.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me is Deadpool 2, just ahead of probably Deadpool 1, or I could probably put the 2 Deadpools together. Look, I'm a big Ryan Reynolds fan. I have been from way back in the day, and who doesn't love Deadpool? And I think number 2 for me is just ahead of number 1 because it just has a little bit more to it, especially with the extra characters like Cable, who was great, Domino, who was a real surprise for me. She was a great character, and Juggernaut. We got to see a proper Juggernaut, not that Vinnie Jones bullshit, like a proper Juggernaut. And that's why it kind of put it ahead for me in that respect. And yeah, full of laughs, full of action, full of all the stuff that you love Deadpool for. So that's why that's number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2 for me is SpiderMan No Way Home. Look, do I need to say anything other than, I don't really need to say anything. You know why it's a great film. I know why it's a great film. It is such a good film. I love this movie. I mean, now that it's just hit Disney, I think it is now. I've already watched it a couple of times again since I watched it a couple of times at the cinema. Just in the short amount of time, I've watched this a few times already and love it every time. There's always just some little new thing or something, and it gives you all the warm and fuzzies as well. So yeah, for me, this is my favourite Spider-Man movie. So that's why this one's at number 2.
Number 1.
Now, my number 1, and people might find this one a bit strange. There's the pun, is Doctor Strange, the first one. look, I've tried to figure out why I like this movie so much, and I don't know if I can put my finger on it exactly, but I just love watching this movie. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is great as Doctor Strange, and I love him in everything he's been in. I don't know what it is, and I've never been a big Doctor Strange fan in the comics. Like, I've never really had anything like to read or anything about him in the comics, but it's just something about that movie that just, and that's why this is number one, is because it strikes a chord with me. It's just something about it. It may not be loved by everyone. I know a lot of people like it, but not everyone does. But yeah, it's just something about that movie that I can sit down and watch it anytime, anywhere, and watch the whole thing and, and enjoy it. So that's why that's my number one.
Number 5.
Okay, now we get to the shit end of the list. And number 5 for me is Avengers Age of Ultron. What a contrast. You go from that first Avengers movie that Joss Whedon did, which was great, and then you go to this steaming pile of shit, which is Age of Ultron, which for me, it was just a placeholder movie. I've said this to a few people. It just felt like this movie was just there to fill in the gap between the first Avengers and the third Avengers. Like, it literally was just there to set up Vision and the Maximoff twins, and all it did was just introduce a lot of people and set a lot of things up. It was just like this. It was almost like the second act of a movie. It was just all this exposition and all this bullshit. There was hardly what you call an Age of Ultron. Like, it was just, yeah, you've seen the movie. It's just, it really accomplished nothing other than just setting up the next movie. That's all it was. And that's why that's at number 5.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me was the Hulk, the one that was way back in the day, probably just before this all started. I was so looking forward to this. Because I was a fan of the Hulk TV show back in the day with Luke Ferrigno back in when I was a little tyke. So to see a Hulk movie, can't say I wasn't pumped for it. And a good Aussie actor, Eric Bana, was in the lead role. But oh my God, it was so
very disappointing.
Yep, it was so disappointing. It was terrible. I mean, he didn't even really fight any bad guys other than some big dogs, I think. It was just terribly done. It wasn't a superhero flick. It was all about emotion and this and from what I read, the director said, so much hype, delivered so little. And that's why this is at number 4.
Number 3.
Okay, number 3 for me is Captain Marvel. In a word, the only thing really wrong with this movie, and the biggest thing wrong with this movie, is, Brie Larson. Oh my God, Marvel have done such a good job of casting characters all the way through, and then they hit their speed bump. There are so many other actresses out there that could have nailed that character so much better, yet they picked her. And then of course she turns on fans and everything else, but that's a whole nother story as well. But that's besides the point. She is terrible in this movie. I'm not looking forward to the other Marvel movie coming out, to say the least. Everyone else in the cast was pretty good actually, but it was just her. She just sucked the life out of that movie, and that's why that's number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2 on the list is Electra. Holy shit, what a dog of a movie this is. Jennifer Garner as Elektra. Oh my God, did the writers not read any of the comic books? Oh, Jesus. Fair dinkum. I don't know how they... Well, I know why she got put in Daredevil, clearly because they were dating, Ben Affleck and her were dating at the time, or married or whatever. She gets in that, and then they're like, hey, let's spin this off, because, and it's like, no, we don't need to. I'll give it a hard pass, thank you very much.
Number 1.
And number 1 on my shit list, shall we say, is X-Men Dark Phoenix. Oh my God. What can you say about this that hasn't already been said out there?
That is one big pile of shit.
It just astounds me that you can mess up one of the X-Men's best storylines for a second time. They stuffed it up the first time in X-Men 3, and then they go and do it again in this one. Oh, and the actors, everyone was clearly at the end of their contracts. Everyone was just phoning it in like there was no tomorrow. It was atrocious. Oh, God. It's not hard to see why this bombed at the cinema and no one likes it. And that's why this is my number 1.
Number 5.
Okay, coming in at number 5 for me is Aquaman. I really enjoyed this flick. Jason Momoa he's just so charismatic as that character. And not only that, the cinematography in that movie is fantastic. A lot of the set pieces and the big fight scene at the end and all that sort of stuff. Some great stuff there and some great supporting characters. But yeah, I think for me, I'm a bit of a Black Manta fan. So to finally see Black Manta up on screen, that was a joy in itself, to tell you the truth. And I can't wait to see him in the next one. I can't wait to see the next one, actually. It looks like it'll be good. So that's why this one is my number 5.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me is Batman Returns. Now, this is my favourite of the Michael Keaton Batman. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first one is great with Jack Nicholson as Joker, but for me, I don't know, I have a bit more of a soft spot for this one. I just enjoyed it a bit more. And how can you go wrong with Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman? Oh my God, how good was she? Sure, it's a little campy in spots, and I know some people can pick it apart, but for me, it's one of those ones that I can sit down and watch anytime and watch again and again, and I really do enjoy it. So that is why that's my number 4.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Not the Joss Whedon one, the Zack Snyder one. It is 4 hours worth of movie, but it is worth it all. It's such a great epic piece, and I've watched it a couple of times now, and I love it every time I watch it. There's so many great things, and I think for me, Zack listened to the fans and fixed what Josh had got wrong, and went through and tinkered with all that stuff. He probably fixed some of the stuff that he was going to put in there but didn't. I think he just listened to the fans, and he served up this great movie that I have to admit I love watching from, if I've got to spare 4 hours, which I don't at most times, but it's a great flick to watch, and I do enjoy watching the Justice League done right, that's for sure. That's why this is number 3.
Number 2.
Coming in at my number 2 is Shazam. I'm not even a big Shazam fan, to tell you the truth. I've never really had much to do with him in the comics, but this movie, it's such a fun movie. I really love this. Look, I'll have the link down below, or go back and check my reviews. I've done a full review of it, and I absolutely love it. It is such a good movie. So much fun, action, everything. I love the actors in it. It's really good, and it really makes me, I'm really keen to see Fury of the Gods, the second one coming out soon, and then of course Black Adam, which is only just around the corner, so I can't wait to watch both of those. So that's why this is my number 2.
Number 1.
And coming in at number 1 for me is Suicide Squad. Actually, out of both lists, this is probably my favourite movie out of all of them. I love this movie so much. It's so much fun and so great. This is James Gunn at his best. Such a great movie, such a great cast, or even all of the little characters that die early on in the piece, even they're all, everyone is great in it, and I loved it. And of course, John Cena just stood out as Peacemaker, and that TV series, that is fantastic as well. I can't stress enough about how great that is. Go out and watch Peacemaker if you haven't. Watch this movie if you haven't. Where have you been if you haven't watched this one? For me, this is my favourite. This one, I can see, I've actually lost count how many times I've watched this movie now since it's come out. As soon as it hit the streaming services, boom, that was it. I was done. I was just like, watch. I love this movie to death. And what more can I say than go out and watch it. It's a great flick. And that's why this is my number 1.
Number 5.
So on my shit list at number 5 for DC is, of course, Batman and Robin. Oh my God, this movie almost killed the superhero movie genre in one foul swoop. Thank you, Joel Schumacher. There's so many things wrong with this on so many levels. I don't even know where to begin, but at the top of that list of why that movie was shit, for me, it's Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Oh my God, she was terrible, absolutely terrible. Doing that whole campy comic book sort of vibe, but just done absolutely atrociously. And that's why this is at number 5.
Number 4.
So number 4 is Green Lantern. Now, for me, I'm a big Green Lantern fan, and this should really be one of my favourite movies. It really should, and it's got a lot of things that I'm a big fan of. 1, big fan of Ryan Reynolds. 2, big fan of Mark Strong, and as Sinestro, one of my favourite characters of all time. He did a great job. Don't get me wrong, he did a fantastic job as Sinestro. This should have been one of my favourite movies of all time. But as we all know, the script was terrible. Some of the acting was terrible. CGI. Do I need to keep going? You know why it was terrible. It had so many things going for it, but it just fell over at the end, which is such a shame, because I'd love to have seen half a dozen Green Lantern movies myself. But anyway, that's why that's at number 4.
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3 is Wonder Woman 1984. Oh my God. Such a disappointment after the first movie was so great, and then they come along with this steaming pile of crap. It was atrocious. The whole Wishing Stone fiasco thing, seriously, why did we go down that path? It never ends well, and it just disrupted everything that in the DC universe timeline and everything else. I don't even want to get started on that. But yeah, I think that's why this is at number 3, is because it's such a disappointment after following a great movie to serve this up. I think that's why this is at number 3 for me.
Number 2.
Okay, number 2 is, of course, the 1984 Supergirl. What a train wreck of a movie.
Oh, the humanity!
I have a review where I go in depth a bit more if you want to go check it out. But honestly, this movie should never have been made. It shouldn't. It was just a cheap cash grab in the 80s with a script that was atrocious, and everyone just almost doing everything they can to make it as bad as possible. And that is why this is my number 2.
Number 1.
And coming in number 1 at the DC shitty end is Catwoman. This is probably the shittiest superhero movie across all of it. This is probably the poster child for shitty DC, comic book movies, I would say, not just DC, just shitty movies in general. Probably, how can I put it?
Pretty awful. It was a masterpiece of awful.
It is just terrible in so many ways. The poor casting. Halle Berry was terrible in that movie. None of the other characters was great. Terrible script. The costume was atrocious. Honestly, I could go on for another 10 minutes about why this movie was bad. And it was kind of coming off the heels of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, and she set the bar really high. And then to see Halle Berry come in with that, it wasn't hard to see why people rejected it and didn't like it. So that's why this is my number 1. So there we have it. Thanks for watching the video, and thanks to Rob for suggesting it. If you want to see more videos like this, or maybe you want to see something else, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I will do my best to make that video happen. So look, if you like this video, I've got some more, maybe some top 10 videos you'd like to see. Why don't you click that one there? Or maybe you want to see some of my collection updates. Got you covered too. Why don't you click that one there? And of course, don't forget to do the most important thing. Throw me a bat like, and don't forget to hit that subscription button on the way out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.